Okay, so this is the reason why Zanya's is better than Nash's. You get 1, 2, 3 autos off in Death Realm before your Q. Or, I mean, right after your Q. Now let's try this with Nash's. If we do the same thing, we ER, Q, auto, 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 Q, auto, auto, auto. So you get about 1 more auto attack if you cancel it with your, if you auto cancel with your Q like this. You get about 1 more auto attack in Death Realm with Nash's. So Nash's, as a result, is it's not cost efficient for a new Mord because the attack speed component is basically worthless. The attack speed that you get from it is really, really worthless because in a full combo, and when you're team fighting, you're only gonna get 1 more auto off before you Q. It's because the CDR you get from Nash's reduces the cooldown of your Q, so you're gonna be weaving in, you're gonna have your Q up a lot more often. So you're just gonna be weaving in autos with the Q, and your main damage source comes from your Q. It shouldn't be from your autos. Your autos are just there in the downtime while your spells are on cooldown. That's the idea of making Mord an AP bruiser. He's not really gated by cooldowns now. Current Mord is gated by his cooldowns a lot. New Mordekaiser isn't because he's gonna have consistent damage with his passive and autos. That's also part of his passive. Okay, now let's talk about... I made an item set. Okay, I'm gonna keep this here. This is the item set I made for New Mord. So starting items, you're gonna go either Doran's Shield or Doran's Ring, depending on the matchup. Versus most melee matchups, just get Doran's Ring because their early AP really helps with trading and wave clear. Also, you might think getting Doran's Ring isn't cost efficient for a new Mordekaiser, but it is. It's still cost efficient even though you get 5 mana per 5. The 5 mana per 5 stat itself is worth 300 gold, so if you get rid of that, Doran's Ring is worth 488 gold. So we're still benefiting, we're still not wasting any gold by investing into Doran's Ring. Now, Doran's Shield, just take into... It's pretty self-explanatory. You take this into difficult matchups, like ranged poke, I would say. People like Kennen, Nico, I would take Doran's Shield first item. Okay. Isn't the E easier to hit properly if you have enabled that thing in the options that shows the indicator? And no, you don't need the indicator to land your E. Also, let's talk about using your E. Your E is a fixed distance. It always pulls them a fixed distance. If I E, like right here, or if I do it max range, it's still gonna do the same amount. It still drags you the same amount. So this is actually really useful when someone's trading right outside of your tower range. You can just pull them in really quickly like that, and then most likely kill them. Okay, let's talk about... Okay, so if you're facing an AD champ, like Riven or Aurelia, AD bruisers, then start Doran's Ring and then rush Seekers. Seekers is just a really broken item in general, and you're gonna end up building Zhonya's anyways. And then after you buy Seekers, you either go for Rylai's or Liandry's, and you can fit boots anywhere in between these items. I usually get tier 1 boots and then I just hold on to tier 1 boots until I'm done with my Rylai's or Liandry's, and then I finish my boots. So you get Rylai's if the champ you're facing can kite you really easily, and you get Liandry's if the champ that you're fighting doesn't kite you and they just 1v1 you melee. Like, so, for example, versus Riven, Aurelia, I would go Seekers into Rylai's and get boots in between. Versus champs like Tahm Kench, Alawi, or maybe even Darius, get Leandri's first, because it's just going to give you more damage output in the 1v1. And Rylai's is a really, really cost-efficient item. I'm going to talk about these items that you should never build on the new Mord later. And then after your core build, so this is what it should look like. Depending on their team comp, if you're really ahead, you can go for Sork Shoes if you want, because stacking flat pen is pretty good with Mord's E. So this is usually what I would do. This is your core. These are your core items right here. These 3 items are always core if you're facing AD. Then after this, depending on their team comp, if they have mixed damage, you can go for either Spirit Visage or you can go for Morello's. Usually, if you're even or ahead, just get Morello's, because it's always better to get the pen, because it just increases your damage output significantly, especially in team fights with your passive AoE. And then last item, you can just get Spirit Visage or Adaptive or Banshee's Veil. It's probably a bit better to go a little bit on the tankier side, so I would probably go for Adaptive or Spirit Visage depending on their team. If they have burst magic damage like LeBlanc or Syndra, champs like those, then go for Spirit Visage. But if they have damage over time like Teemo, Malzahar, or Brand, then go Adaptive. So that's the build. That's the standard build. Now, Banshees, I'm going to talk about this item. It's actually, this item is really, really good. The problem is, it can be difficult to fit into your build. But once you complete the item, it's great. So, if you're really ahead, I would probably, so let's say you're facing Cannon top, and they have another AP mid, but then their jungle's like AD. I think Banshees can work good as a 4th item after your Rylai's, Leandri's, and Zhonya's. These items are always going to be core, unless if they have, usually, if they have no AD, then you can skip Zhonya's, but I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. Now, these items over here, I'm going to say are situational, because Deadman's itself is a pretty solid item. It depends on how you want to build Mord. After these 3 core items, you can either go tanky or you can go more AP. Usually if you're ahead, and if you're the only frontline, then you want to go tanky. But if you're ahead, or if you're even or ahead, and you're not the only frontline, and if you do have a frontline like Sejuani, like if you have a Sejuani jungle, or Braum support or something like that, then you can get more AP. So that's how you decide whether to buy more AP or whether to go tanky after your core items. And these items right here, Randuin's, just build that if they have crit. And so Randuin's is really good versus all AD comps usually. If they have Yasuo mid, and then bot lane they have any crit ADC, any ADC like Sivir, Jhin, Tristana, then Randuin's is really good as a 4th or 5th item. Thornmail, situational. All of these items are situational. Deathcap can work, and it's actually probably one of the best items if you have a frontline, because it significantly increases your passive's damage output, both your autos and your damage over time. Now Stoneplate, this is an item I would build if you're the only frontline and your team's even. I would go full AP, and then I would get a Stoneplate, because in team fights, this item has significant impact, and its gold efficiency is significantly increased depending on how many people there are around you. So in a teamfight scenario, this is a really good item, and I feel like, in my opinion, it's really underrated too. Now, this next block, these are just items that you could build, but maybe are not the best. Because these core items are like this is the optimal build. This is just really, really good. The reason why you don't need Proto Belt is because the reason why I don't build Proto Belt, a lot of Mord mains build Proto Belt, but I don't think it's needed because without its active, the stats are really good and it's basically cost efficient with its active, but it's not needed if you have Rylise. For Mord, Rylise is a lot more cost efficient than Proto Belt in my opinion, because you can stick onto people a lot better with your passive. Would I ever build Dark Seal? I think you could maybe go Magi's if you stomp really hard. But yeah, Magi's could work. I mean, that's a given. If you get fed, then yeah, go for it. If you think you won't die. So you could go Magi's, Rylise Lianji's, and then get tank items. And it would work. Okay, and so Boots of Lucidity, I feel like this item could work. I haven't tried it out yet, but it's really cheap and it gives CDR. And it reduces your summoner spell cooldowns, so I don't think it would be that bad, because current Mord has somewhat of a difficult time fitting CDR into his build. So it could work, maybe. Like, these items, I wouldn't get mad at you if you built them, is what I'm trying to say. Because I think they're okay. Now, Wit's End. This item is really, really good if they have majority magic damage and you want a 1v1. It actually makes you really tanky and you're pretty difficult to kill, and it gives you movement speed and healing if you're low. So it's actually a really good item for sustained damage. And the reason why I'm gonna say, I don't think anyone's gonna agree with this, but I think it makes perfect sense to me. I think Wit's End is a better item than Nashor's on New Mord, because you can get more autos off with Wit's End without having to queue than you can with Nashor's. See, look, let me show you. So we got 3 autos off. Even with the Rylise Liandry Zhonya's, we got 3 autos off. We got 3 autos off before we could queue with Rylise Liandry's and Zhonya's. With Nashor's, we got the same thing, but you could get 4 autos if you like did the auto queue cancel like this. Then you could get 4 autos off. But for some people that can be difficult to do. Now Wit's End, on the other hand, so let's do these 3 items. This is the same scenario. Let's see how much autos we would get off now. 1, 2, okay wait, I have to turn off. I forgot I had this on. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. See? Get 4 autos off with this. Get 4 autos off with Wit's End. So it's the same thing as Nashor's, except it's just better. Because your Q gets weaved in with your combo more smoothly. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm saying. Wait, Ducky, are you still there? Oh wait, I think Ducky left. Yes. Let me check. Oh wait. Yeah, well, I mean, do you think it makes sense? Do you think I explained it well?
I think for the most part, yeah. It's also worth noting that Nashor's it doesn't give you any tankiness at all or any sustain, and Wit's End does.
Yeah, that too.
And at the point in the game where you want to build either Nashor's or Wit's End, you really need to start getting some kind of tankiness.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, now Sunfire. I would take Deadman's over Sunfire because Deadman's, you have movement speed consistently until you do your auto. So if you're chasing them down with your passive, you can slow them with the Deadman's auto at full stacks. So you can put yourself in a favorable spot before you wanna start autoing them, if that makes sense. let me show you guys. It's probably better to see. Okay, so let me stack up my deadmans. See, if I Q or E this, it doesn't discharge your deadman stack, so you still have the movement speed. So say you're in R and they're kiting you, you can auto when they're close to you to discharge the deadmans. Also, one trick I want to show you guys is that Ducky, do you know if you are someone, I'm pretty sure their screen gets like blurred out. It's like nocturne for a second, right?
I don't think so.
I don't know, but I thought of something. I'm pretty sure you can do this. Like, if you are flash into the bush, they won't see where you went, and then you can just TP out when your R is about to run out, like this.
Maybe. That might work. But that's like,
It
nobody's
is
gonna
like
do
not.
that.
Yeah, someone in my
That's like
Twitch chat just said it
you
is
would
like
do
that.
that,
Yeah, I would do that.
but I don't think anyone else would do that. That'd be like a 1 million thing for most people.
Yo, what's up, Karish? Okay, now let's move on to the next row. Okay, these are items you should never build. Just please don't. I'm not gonna explain I'll explain Gunblade, Voidstaff, and Nashers, because people actually think these are good items on Mord. But I don't think. Let's see, there's no point in explaining it. Every single other item on this list is self-explanatory. I've seen like so many other Mord players build it or ask about it, and it's just not good. It's not cost efficient. I'll talk about Abyssal too. Let's talk about Abyssal first. So people say you should get Abyssal into team comps that are heavy AP, like 4 or 5 AP, and I'm gonna say that's not good, because you can just get Wit's End instead, and someone else on your team should have Abyssal Mask. Like, I'm assuming the reason why you're gonna build this is for like the HP and the passive, and it's just not cost efficient if you're building it for those two items, or for those two stats, because you can just get, someone on your team can get this item, and then you can get Wit's End. And your damage output will be significantly increased. Now Void Staff. Let's get level 13, so we get maximum pen on our E. Now this item, this item is not as cost efficient because your E gives you 25% magic pen, and this gives 40%. So the way this is calculated is that it stacks multiplicatively and not additively. If the magic pen stacked additively, then Void Staff would be a good purchase. It would be overpowered. But the reason why this isn't good is because it stacks multiplicatively, meaning you would have 55% magic pen. Yeah, 55% magic pen, because it stacks multiplicatively. So this is not cost efficient, pretty self-explanatory. Now Gunblade. This is an item I'm gonna say no to, because the build components are really terrible, and Mord doesn't have any AD scaling now, so Gunblade is not as efficient, as cost efficient for Mord as it used to be. The healing is decent, but if you want healing, just go Domination. Just go Domination secondary and take Ravenous Hunter, Taste of Blood. I'll talk about runes later. But if you want healing, then you do that. Don't build Gunblade for it. And sure, Gunblade can burst, but it's better to just get Rylai's, because you'll get more AP, and you'll have more staking potential, and you'll get... This item is gonna make you tankier, and it'll make your DPS a lot more consistent. So that's why you don't build Gunblade. All these other items, no, just please don't. Please don't. Please don't build these items. Like, I'm not gonna talk about them. Okay, now let's talk about runes. Kaiser's still sick. Yeah, I'm blowing my nose a lot. You guys can probably hear that. Okay, let's start off with the basic runes. Conquer, you can do this into almost almost any matchup. There's never really a situation where Conquer is bad unless they have a majority range team comp, so you can't stack it as well. Then, so versus melee bruisers, or versus bruisers, all bruisers, you want to go Conquer. This isn't what I do. I'll talk about what I do later. But versus all bruisers, Conquer is like a staple rune. It's really good. And secondary, you take. Yo, thanks for the follow. Its name. Secondary, you take Transcendence Nimbus Cloak, and this is because Conquer already gives you healing, and you need CDR with your Q. So you can get the healing if you want, but it's preference. I usually just like taking Nimbus Cloak and Transcendence because my Q will be up 0.6 seconds earlier. Would you prefer Tenacity instead of Alacrity? Okay, that just depends on their team comp. I usually like Alacrity myself though. I think the attack speed's pretty nice. And Triumph, this is self-explanatory. The other two are just not good. Now, Last Stand, this is preference. I take Last Stand over Coop because I'm just a more dangerous game player, and I always go for plays on low HP, so that's why I take Last Stand. Also, Last Stand is just better in a 1v1 scenario, in my opinion. Now, stat shards, since you're going Transcendence, you just go more CDR. Because with this build, you're gonna have Zonias, and then you'll have 30% CDR. And then if you build, your Q is gonna be a 3.2 second cooldown. So if you build Banshees on top of that, then your Q is gonna be a 2.6 second cooldown, I believe. I might be a little off. It's gonna be either 2.6 or 2.8 second cooldown, because then you'll get 40% CDR with Banshees. Or you can, instead of getting Banshees, you can go Visage, and you'll have 40% CDR. So usually you're gonna get 40% CDR around level 15-ish, because that's when you're gonna have your 3 or 4 items. Now, let's talk about Phase Rush. This can work. This rune page can work in most range matchups. I already talked about Transcendence, and I talked about Nimbus Cloak. Okay, you have an idea. Presence of Mind. Presence of Mind, 45% CDR. Ultimate Hunter, two duels in one team fight. No, it's unnecessary. And how are you gonna have 2 duels in one team fight? That's like, okay, if you have 45% CDR and your rank 3R, so you're gonna have, your R is gonna be 55%, 55-second cooldown. And then with Ultimate Hunter, assuming you have it fully stacked, how much does it give you full stacked? 525, so 25%, so it would be around like 40-second cooldown, and then Presence of Mind, so like 30 seconds basically. No, it just doesn't work. I mean, it works, but it's like, you don't need it. No. So Phase Rush it gives you really good stick potential in in range matchups. So you just use this rune in range matchups most of the time. And then Domination, because healing. You could go Inspiration secondary, I could see this too, with Approach Velocity and Stopwatcher Boots. But my personal preference is usually always healing. If I'm going Sorcery primary, that's always how it's been. And then these 2 stat shards, you usually want to go at least 1 Adaptive Force. If you don't want CDR, since you go Transcendence, I always go CDR 2 here, because in my opinion it's better. And then this last stat shard, it's preference. It just depends on what you're facing usually. So Conquer, Phase Rush, and then Aftershock. This is a rune page that you can use mid lane versus most assassins, most melee assassins, or even into champs like LeBlanc maybe. But the thing is, versus champs like LeBlanc, it can be difficult to proc Aftershock. I haven't tested this enough, but I know it's going to be really, really good into champs like Talon and Zed, because they won't be able to kill you in lane. So that's when you take Aftershock. Secondary, again, you can choose between healing or sorcery, but my reasoning behind taking sorcery with Aftershock is because I don't think you need sustain. I don't think you need the healing if you're facing assassins, because Aftershock is already gonna make them not. It's gonna negate most of their damage. So it's better to just have more CDR so you can do more damage yourself. Now, I'm gonna talk about what I do. I've been running Spellbook every single game into almost every single matchup, and I think, in my opinion, this is one of the best, if not the best summoner, if not the best rune for Mord. And the reason for this is because you start off with TP Flash, and at level 6 you can swap to Exhaust, and it's a guaranteed kill. It's a guaranteed 1v1. And you're most likely gonna kill them in your death realm after you poke, assuming you poke them a little bit. And then after that, you can swap to Ghost for mid-game team fights, and Ghost is really, really good in mid-game team fights. And Spellbook is just really versatile. Like, if you're in a bad matchup, you can go for Heal or Barrier or Exhaust, etc. And then, if you want, usually what my swaps go like is, I swap TP. I usually use TP to get back to lane or to gank bot lane. Most of the time, that's usually how it is. And then after my TP's on cooldown, I swap. I swap my TP to Exhaust, and usually your first swap comes when you're level 6, so it's like actually really convenient. You can get a really good cheese off. So you swap to Exhaust, or I swap to Exhaust, then I kill them, level 6. Then after that, I usually swap to Ignite after. Why perfect timing? I'll explain. I swap to Ignite after, and I look to get another solo kill, because my TP is going to be on cooldown. And then after that, if my flash is on cooldown, usually whatever summoner spell is on cooldown, that's the one you want to swap out. It's pretty self-explanatory. So, I think I explained it fairly well. This is just a really versatile rune, and it can be used in almost any scenario. So what I've been doing is I've been usually running Conquer or Spellbook. I've been doing Conquer into tanks and then Spellbook into anything else. I think Conquer's still needed versus hard tanks like Scion or Cho'Gath, champs like those. I think you need Conquer, but everything else I feel like this could work. But some people just aren't really that good at using Spellbook and they just don't like it, and I respect that, but in my opinion this is one of the best runes for Mord, for new Mord, because he can just utilize it so well. Like, think about why Riven and Ornn, I don't think you guys see Spellbook Riven as much, but I see like 2 or 3 Riven 1-tricks in high elo take Spellbook in most of their games, and who's one? Okay, yeah, Box. He takes Spellbook in a majority of his games, and that's because he has insane kill pressure at level 6. That's because Riven has lots of kill pressure at level 6, and because he likes the versatility of Spellbook. It's kind of the same reason for Mord, except I think Mord is a better user of Spellbook because he benefits so much from Exhaust, Ignite, and Ghost. He only does it in Smurfs. No, I faced him one time in Masters, and he took Spellbook. And also, Conquer got nerfed like 3 times in a row. That's why I don't like it. On Mord, it feels kind of underwhelming most of the time, unless if they have unless if they have a decent amount of HP or resists, then it feels nice. But other than that, it's pretty underwhelming in my opinion. So then after this, after Spellbook, I take Stopwatch, because I build Zhonya's almost every game, And after that, I take minion dematerializers, and this actually makes up for Mord's wave clear early game. It's actually a really good rune, in my opinion. I'll show you guys the stats after, and then for your last tree, or for your last row, you can take either Approach Velocity or Cosmic Insight, but I take Approach Velocity because I usually rush Rylai's in most matchups, and this gives you, this just amplifies your sticking potential with your passive movement speed. Now, Cosmic Insight, I don't go this because it gives you 5% item CDR and Summoner Spell CDR, which you don't really need. Item CDR because the only item active that we're buying is like Zhonya's, so I mean I guess it's useful for that, but we don't need Summoner Spell CDR and we don't need max CDR because we're never gonna reach max CDR most of the time. And then, so this is only useful for the CDR it gives, in my opinion. And Summoner Spell CDR, you don't need that because you have Spellbook and you're just gonna keep on swapping spells. How are you today? Getting better? Yeah, I'm getting better slowly. And then secondary, I take Domination just for the healing. You could go Sorcery second and take CDR, but this is just what I do because I feel like the sustain is really nice and it's too good to give up. But maybe in a really easy matchup where you don't need the sustain, you can go Sorcery second. But this is what I like doing. Now, let's talk about what one of my friends like doing. Yo, Ducky.
Yes.
This is you. Explain this. Lethal tempo, dude.
Okay. Here's the thing. If you're facing a bruiser that wants to all-in you, I'm pretty sure that Lethal Tempo does more damage than any other Keystone. I'm like fairly certain of that. The only issue is it's not hard to kite out of the Lethal Tempo proc, but you're not going to have issues with that up until like maybe even low diamond. Below that, people are probably just going to try to all-in you when they think they can win. And if you have Lethal Tempo, they will never be able to win in lane unless they do some really fancy shit.
And I think this can work too, since in Death Realm, after you Q, you can just keep on autoing, because your Q's, you're going to be able to get one more Q off, depending on, like early game, you're not going to be able to get one more Q off. Like early game, level 6, you can only get one Q off, then you're just going to keep on autoing them. So Lethal Tempo is good for that in the 1v1.
And you have to think, like, early game, all your cooldowns are super long, and you don't have that much AP. So most of your damage, maybe even like half of your damage, is going to be coming from your autos. So if you increase that speed by like 50, 60%, that's not like a small amount of damage early game. But like I said, you can get kited fairly easily from almost any champion.
Yeah.
But that's just going to come down to the enemy's skill level.
Here, I'm going to talk
which is why Spellbook is good.
I'm going to talk about the stats now. See, the stats are actually really decent on the bonus minion damage dealt. Now, let me look at something. I'm checking to see. So yeah, these minion dematerializers, the way you want to use them is you want to use one on each type of minion that maximizes your wave clear. So if you do that, then your Q, so usually when you want to clear a wave, you either, I always clear the wave with 2 Qs. I always just get the minions together as 6, and then 2 Qs finishes them off. So that's usually, and if you don't go minion dematerializer, then 2 Qs does not kill the wave, unless if you're really ahead. So yeah, the stats you get are really good from this rune page.